By now, you've probably already heard that Christian McCaffrey, former All-Pro running back, superstar for the Carolina Panthers, has been moved to the San Francisco 49ers. This is a huge trade for both teams involved. I'll talk about in this video what it means for the 49ers, what it means for the Panthers going forward, and why this is a huge trade that could really impact the rest of 2023, or 2022 into 2023. I will be doing a Madden 23 rebuild of both the 49ers with McCaffrey and eventually the Panthers, and we'll talk about why eventually will come into play a little bit later in this video, but just, we don't really know what's going to happen there yet. I don't want to go ahead and rebuild a team and then Brian Burns gets traded, DJ Moore's on the move, and I'll talk about why those players should absolutely not be traded in a minute. But first, we'll talk about the return. I was a little bit shocked it was so high, and I'll say why. So, the Carolina Panthers received a second-round pick in 2023, so this is this upcoming draft, a third, a fourth, I don't know what a found round pick is, sounds fun, and a fifth rounder in 2024. Shout out to the Charlotte Observer. Listen, I also don't spell check sometimes, and I make a typo, it's okay, but yeah, it's a second, third, fourth round pick in 2023 and a fifth round pick in 2024, so it's a decent return for someone that, just let's face it, is rarely healthy. Now, I will say that, oh, it's a running back. I think we all are wise enough to know that Christian McCaffrey is not just a running back. This is, one of the better receiving backs we've ever seen, if not the best receiving back in NFL history. And the reason I say that is not because of anything you're going to find on the stat sheet, although 1,000 yards receiving in 2019 and close to 900 in 2018 is absolutely ridiculous. The reason I would say Christian McCaffrey is the best receiving back in NFL history is he's not really, he's got the route tree of a running back. This is a guy that can run any route, seemingly, and I think he'd be one of the better slot receivers in the NFL, and I really, truly believe that, but his value is the fact that he's also a great back, and he has great vision, unbelievable elusiveness. Christian McCaffrey is such a talented player, but as you can see, since 2020, he hasn't really played. 3 games in 2020, only 7 games a season ago. 6 games so far in 2022. Things are looking pretty good. Still producing at a fairly elite level, 4.5 yards per carry at about 65 yards per game. And then as a receiver, still doing pretty well as well. Close to that 50-yard a game number. And he's tremendous. The thing is, and I always say this, injury-prone players don't usually get healthier. That's kind of the thing, especially as they age. And for Christian McCaffrey, sometimes injuries are just unlucky, but his type of injuries is not a torn ACL. It's not, a torn Achilles, which are tough to come back from. I'm not trying to downplay those, but those are kind of freak one-time injuries. When it's your ankle, when it's you got a knee issue, and it's these little things that compound and then turn into bigger things. Oftentimes those players end up missing a lot of time. And especially at the running back position, where you are going to get tackled pretty much every single time you touch the ball, those injuries are going to pile up. And that's why I'm kind of surprised the return was so high, because you might be trading for a player in Christian McCaffrey who you might not even get to have. However, for the 49ers, he is under contract until 2025. The 49ers are not paying any of that bonus. They're just purely taking on the cap hit. And for this year, it's essentially nothing. They do have an out after 2023, or into 2023 if they want to take it, although you'd expect that they wouldn't. They would have them for 2023, 2024, and 2025. As you can see, the dead cap associated with this contract is nothing, and that's because of being acquired from trade. So they don't really take any penalty by getting rid of him, which you'd expect that they wouldn't. But it's purely an upside play for the 49ers. You're already a pretty talented roster when you look at things, and they're just accumulating, the best group of weapons probably in the NFL. And Christian McCaffrey, obviously one of the best running backs, but you'd say one of the best overall weapons because of what he offers as a receiver. And then for Deebo Samuel, I don't think anyone's being fooled that Deebo Samuel is the best receiver in the NFL, but he's one of the best overall weapons for what he adds to the offense as a receiver, as a runner especially. And then, of course, Ayuk is a really talented receiver. George Kittle, probably the best all-around tight end in the NFL, and super important to this Niners team that loves to run the football. And you get a tight end that loves to run block the way George Kittle does, and at an extremely high level, great things are going to happen for the offense. You love to see it if you're a 49ers fan. And they're 3-3 in a division that's shaping up to be fairly tough. The Seahawks are better than expected, right? And you look at the Cardinals, they just beat the Saints. It's not like a huge accomplishment, but they're going to be a team that probably competes for a playoff spot. I don't think there's any fooling there, right? They're going to be competing at the very least. And of course, we all know what the Rams are capable of. And then you look at Jeff Wilson Jr., right? Jeff Wilson, I think, is a great change of pace back where, okay, maybe he wasn't your bell cow number one guy, but what Jeff Wilson does for you is adds a huge element of speed into your backfield. Jeff Wilson can fly. He's a really, really good change of pace guy, and he kind of came out of nowhere, as the running backs seem to do for the 49ers every single year, which should probably go to show you it really isn't about the player, but it's about the Kyle Shanahan system and how he's able to maximize every single player in that system. There's a reason that Elijah Mitchell looked like the best running back in the NFL for times last year. The reason why Jeff Wilson has looked like one of the best running backs in the NFL this year. I can only imagine how good Christian McCaffrey, if healthy, will look for the 49ers. From their point of view, I do not mind giving up these picks at all. However, it is a lofty return for a running back, but keep in mind McCaffrey is far more than your traditional run-it-up-the-gut running back. Now, for the Panthers, we'll take a look at their draft capital for 2023. They have a 1, they have 2 2s, they have a third, 2 4s, and a 5. Things could change, obviously. And then in 2024, you can see the picks as well. But 2023 is the big one. This is a team that is in rebuild mode, certainly. And they're a bad team. Matt Rule will be fired this season. There's no doubt in my mind that's going to happen. I don't think there's a doubt in anyone's watching this video's mind. Matt Rule will be fired. And for the Panthers, yeah, you're losing probably your best player, although you do have Deontay Foreman, hook 'em horns, as your number one back now. Baker Mayfield has not been a great addition to this Panthers team. Of course, per usual, at this point, he's playing injured and not playing at a high level. He has not played well this season, and it just goes beyond adjusting to the system. He just hasn't been on the same page with the receivers, has not been accurate as a result, and some missed throws, of course, on his own accord, not even just a chemistry thing. Mayfield he's not been it. So the Panthers, who are one of the worst teams in the league, 1-5, one of the few one-win teams. You have Detroit, you have Carolina, you have the Texans, I believe, are a one-win team. There might be, the Raiders in there as well. I think that's it. Might be a bye week team with 1 win as well. But the Panthers are really, really bad. They will be in contention for that number 1 overall pick, and you'd have to expect that it will be a quarterback. Whether they'll have their pick of the quarterbacks, that remains to be seen. But you would expect that if they can get one of the top 2 picks, they're going to get a real difference maker at quarterback. Right now, it's tough for me to say between Bryce Young and CJ Stroud. Really haven't gone too big into the film in 2023 yet. And basically, here's the way I would understand it from what I have seen, what I have watched. Bryce Young kind of has the it factor, right? The way I would compare him, and I tweeted this out, he is Russell Wilson if he played under structure and in the structure of the offense, which is a good thing. Russell Wilson, very bad right now, but think of, prime Russell Wilson if he actually stayed in structure and hit the throws that he needed to make and make the right decisions. That's Bryce Young. So he's got a really, really high ceiling as a top 10 quarterback in the league. And then CJ Stroud, probably not the same level of playmaker as Bryce Young is, but I think he's going to be a really good quarterback nonetheless. He could be QB1 in this class. I've pretty much been QB1A and 1B for Stroud and Young in any particular order. They're very, very close. Stroud makes some incredible throws, but I'm not sure. And I don't want to take anything away from CJ Stroud. I feel like this is going to be completely blown out of proportion. I think CJ Stroud's incredible. It's just there is a certain level of, it factor with Bryce Young that I think could end up being the separator, although I really do like what I see from CJ Stroud when I see him play. Incredible throws in a very productive Ohio State offense. But yeah, it's not really a quarterback talk for 2023 yet. That might be a video later down the line. But they will have their pick of quarterbacks in this class, and you really need to continue to improve the offensive line. Taylor Moton, I would hope, does not get traded. You're going to look to develop a Kwanu, of course, but you have to get better on the interior. But Moton is a young, talented player. You cannot trade him. You have to keep your offensive line intact in some way, and you can't get rid of your best player, especially one who's fairly young, as Taylor Moton is, mid to late 20s, 28. Don't want to get rid of him in any capacity. And you could say the exact same thing for Brian Burns. Brian Burns, obviously you guys know, I think very highly of. I was a huge fan of him coming out in the draft out of Florida State a few years ago. Really, really talented player. I think we've all seen that he's a talented player, and his upside continues to be great. Really, really, really good player. Only 24 years old. Ridiculously good. You cannot trade him. He does have his contract expiring after the 2023 season. This is a fifth-year option that got picked up. You have to look to extend him. He is arguably your best player on defense, and if he's not your best right now, which I think he is looking at the team, he is your best long-term hopeful. So you don't want to trade him in any capacity. J.C. Horn has played well when he's been on the field this season. You do have some talent here, but you're not looking to trade a guy like Brian Burns or Derek Brown even, or Taylor Moton as we talked about. Hopefully not DJ Moore either. You would probably look to trade somebody like Shaq Thompson. You're not competing right now. He's into his late 20s. He's a decent player. He's not really a huge difference maker. He's not the difference between the Panthers winning, 3 games and 6 games this year. They're not going to be a playoff team. Probably trade Shaq Thompson. Trade guys like that. And maybe that's Frankie Louvu. Maybe it isn't. He's a pretty good player, too. I've been impressed with him. Could trade him. I'm not sure what the value would be. But I don't think this is going to be exactly a fire sale. I think it's just McCaffrey was our highest value player next to Burns. We don't want to trade Burns. Let's trade McCaffrey. The Panthers are just going to be bad. I really don't have much more to say other than that. They're going to look to get a quarterback very high in the draft. This is a team that is really bad, but if you can hit on your draft picks, which is always a huge if, you cleared up some cap space, you brought in some draft capital, the Panthers are in rebuild mode. Rule will be out. If they can get a new head coach that they have confidence in, this could be a team that can turn it around. I think fairly quickly as far as rebuilds go, because there is talent on this team. I thought they'd be a little bit better this year. They are absolutely terrible. I was wrong on that. And it just goes to show you this league has been entirely unpredictable this year. But this one should have been more predictable. They just have not come to play. But yeah, McCaffrey out, draft picks in, Panthers bad, 49ers looking to compete in the NFC. It's wide open right now. If the Giants have 5 wins and the Vikings have 5 wins, hell, the Niners could easily end up competing for, the Super Bowl in the NFC. So good luck to both teams going forward, and I will see you in the next one. Take it easy.